The crystal wine glass quivered in my grip as I observed our assembled household surrounding the mahogany table. Richard's 52nd birthday festivities filled the air with warmth, laughter cascading through the room alongside the gentle percussion of silverware meeting china. Seated opposite me was Marcus, our ward-turned-family member. At 23, his frame had broadened with maturity, stretching the fabric of his navy blazer, and I discovered my gaze lingering longer than propriety allowed. I convinced myself. This was maternal satisfaction, pride in the troubled teenager we'd welcomed at 17, now transformed into a self-assured young man. Yet when his emerald eyes met mine through the amber glow of candlelight, something forbidden awakened within my chest. The soft tap of metal against crystal drew our collective attention as Richard's colleague prepared to offer congratulations. Richard rose, the overhead fixture, casting highlights across his graying temples, embarking on his customary address. The well-worn narratives of our 22 years together, polished tales shared at countless gatherings, flowed from his mouth. With practiced ease, my focus wandered back to Marcus. His stare remained fixed upon me, holding depths I couldn't decipher, intense, searching. As he absently drew patterns along his goblet's edge, electricity coursed down my backbone. I adjusted my position, uncertain whether the sensation stemmed from the vintage or the charged atmosphere between us. The dessert course passed in a haze. Richard offered me his customary goodbye peck, distracted and perfunctory. But when Marcus extended his reach to distribute the dessert dishes, his palm grazed my lower back, barely perceptible, fleeting. The impression of his touch seared through my emerald dress as though he'd branded me. 2 in the morning arrived. The final visitors had departed into darkness, their merriment dissolving with the sound of engines starting. Richard had long since withdrawn to our chamber, surrendering to another evening of habitual slumber. I lingered in the kitchen, surrounded by towers of dirty dishes and the gentle murmur of my conflicted thoughts. The rustle of plates masked Marcus's approach until he materialized beside me at the basin. His proximity, solid, commanding, inescapable, enveloped me completely. The fragrance of his aftershave, woodsy and complex, nothing resembling Richard's fresh bergamot scent, surrounded me like armor. "Allow me to assist," he whispered carefully, lifting the wine glass from my hands. Our fingertips connected briefly but unmistakably. Silence descended, dense and peculiar, not from his words, but from everything I refused to acknowledge. The residence felt too quiet, too still, yet something fundamental had shifted between us. Marcus's breathing quickened as he moved nearer, positioning himself between me and the stairway view, a silent barrier creating our private sanctuary, tucked within shadows. His closeness ignited sparks across my skin. I retreated instinctively, disturbed by the emotions surging through my heart. Was this admiration, yearning born from neglect, or something far more perilous, something I dare not acknowledge? I should have withdrawn, should have remembered my role to him, the woman who signed his permission slips, comforted his sorrows, served as his guardian. But I remained frozen. That realization, quiet as it was, resonated more powerfully than any spoken word between us. I had nursed him through influenza at 18, yet as his mouth explored the tender curve of my throat, my thoughts drifted to how long it had been since Richard had kissed me with such fervor, as though I were essential to his very existence. The rationalizations came swiftly. The wine lingered on my tongue, a melancholy companion to the isolation that consumed me, while Richard's casual glances barely acknowledged my existence throughout the evening. Beneath these justifications pulsed a darker truth. I found myself responding to my stepson's passion with matching intensity, my fingers threading through his hair as he pressed me against the marble counter. On the floor above, Richard lay lost in deep sleep, his rhythmic breathing echoing through the stillness. As we finally parted, Marcus's eyes were wide, filled with unmistakable desire. "We cannot," he began, his hand sliding along my waist. "No," I agreed breathlessly. "It's impossible for us." Yet when his lips found mine again, I couldn't pull away. The antique clock chimed softly, announcing 3 in the morning. As I climbed the stairs, my silk nightgown clung to skin still electrified by Marcus's caress. Richard's deep, resonant snoring drifted through our bedroom doorway. The familiar, unchanging rhythm that had once lulled me to sleep for decades now sounded like condemnation. I quietly entered the master bathroom, securing the lock before summoning courage to face the mirror. My lips were swollen, my hair disheveled, and my eyes held a guilty sparkle I hadn't seen since university days. The reflection staring back was a stranger, someone I couldn't recognize. 3 consecutive showers failed to erase the vivid memory of Marcus's hands exploring my body, driven by hunger that left me trembling. Nor could they wash away his whispered words. "You're more radiant than he deserves," breathed against my ear before we reluctantly separated. I told myself it was merely a momentary weakness, a mistake sparked by champagne's effervescence and the weight of loneliness. Yet as my phone illuminated at daybreak with a message from an unknown contact, thoughts of our encounter flooded my consciousness, and my treacherous heart soared before logic could intervene. We perfected the art of stealing fleeting moments, fingers brushing as condiments were passed at breakfast, prolonged eye contact lingering across the dinner table while Richard spoke, creating unspoken tension. Marcus would deliberately leave his clothing in my laundry basket, knowing I would hold each item to my face, inhaling his essence. Each encounter shimmered with dangerous energy. The thrill of avoiding detection only intensified the obsession. Richard remained oblivious, praising Marcus's newfound confidence, unaware that his son's assurance stemmed from a secret liaison with his wife. "You two seem particularly close lately," he observed one evening, absently patting my hand before returning to his legal briefs. The casual comment sent ice through my veins. It was in Marcus's childhood bedroom, the same space where I had once soothed his nightmares, that we first crossed the ultimate boundary. At 23, he pressed me against those familiar superhero posters, his kiss urgent and demanding. "He'll return within the hour," I gasped, feeling Marcus's teeth graze my collarbone. "Then we should hurry," he murmured, his fingers expertly working my buttons. Afterward, as I smoothed my blouse with shaking hands, Marcus caught my wrist. "This isn't merely about companionship," he said, his gaze searching mine. "You're the only person who truly understood me." The raw hunger in his expression filled me with dread, for I recognized it intimately, seeing it daily in my own reflection. That evening, Richard's hand found mine in bed, a gesture absent for months. As I fulfilled my marital duties, my mind lingered on Marcus's touch from hours before, how he had awakened passion within me after years of emotional abandonment. As Richard turned away, emotion overwhelmed me, tears threatening to spill. His contentment contrasted sharply with my turmoil. The deceptions accumulated like neglected laundry. I canceled meetings with friends, fearing they might glimpse the guilt written across my features. I began wearing high necklines to conceal Marcus's marks of affection. I found myself studying Richard during breakfast, wondering if ending our marriage would devastate him less than the truth we were living. Then came the message that changed everything, not from Marcus, but from my daughter Emma at university. The one person who had always possessed an uncanny ability to read between lines. "Coming home this weekend. We need to discuss what's happening between you and Marcus." My phone slipped from trembling fingers, shattering against the tile like a champagne flute. Weeks earlier, this time, there would be no gathering the pieces. Emma's sudden arrival had me frantically attempting to erase evidence of our forbidden relationship. I swept through the house like a hurricane, collecting Marcus's abandoned sweaters, wiping our shared fingerprints from wine glasses, and saturating the air with jasmine perfume to mask lingering traces of his cologne in our secret corners. As her key turned in the front lock, I sat rigidly on the living room sofa, hands clasped tightly in my lap, a magazine open to a page I hadn't absorbed. "Mother?" Emma paused in the doorway, her college backpack slung casually over one shoulder, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. At 21, she had inherited Richard's sharp analytical stare, the same one that made attorneys squirm under scrutiny in his courtroom. Now it pinned me to the sofa like a specimen under glass. I prepared coffee that neither of us touched. The silence between us sharpened into something fierce. "It's Marcus, isn't it?" With sudden force, she slammed her mug down, exclaiming. Brown liquid splashed across the granite surface, mirroring the truth neither of us could contain any longer. "Oh, Mother, I've noticed how your eyes follow him, how you both disappear after meals." Her voice trembled. "Tell me I'm imagining things." The denial died on my tongue. My daughter's face, so reminiscent of Richard's in its honesty, crumpled. That night in the garage stillness, Marcus looked at me with sadness and confusion. What I saw wasn't desire, it was the loneliness of someone clinging to familiarity. In a house that no longer felt like home. "Just pack the car." "Emma knows." The words tasted like ash on my tongue, his grip tightened. What does it matter? She's not my biological sister. Richard isn't my biological father. The casual way he dismissed our family ties twisted my stomach. For the first time, I glimpsed the frightened boy beneath the man orphaned twice, grasping onto me as his anchor in the storm we'd created together. Richard's headlights swept across the garage windows, casting fleeting shadows. We scattered like criminals fleeing a crime scene. At dinner, the atmosphere was thick enough to cut. Emma stared at her plate, jaw clenched tight. Richard rambled about a case, completely unaware of how Marcus's foot traced along my ankle beneath the table. Emma abruptly stood. The chair emitted a sharp screech, making us all jump. "I can't do this," she whispered, barely audible, before rushing upstairs. Richard's eyes widened as he watched her go. "What was that about?" Marcus's knee brushed against mine, a warning. "Teenage drama," I lied smoothly, my deception flowing effortlessly. My hand moved toward the wine, steady as stone. That composure terrified me most. Richard lay beside me, lost in his snoring. My phone suddenly glowed with a message from Marcus. "Meet me." The house creaked softly under my weight. I stealthily navigated the dark hallway, gliding past Emma's closed door. Marcus's bedroom door stood slightly ajar, soft laptop light casting warmth over his bare chest. He drew me inside. His lips crashed against mine with fierce possessiveness that left me dizzy. The door opened soundlessly, but it wasn't Emma who gasped. Richard stood motionless in the doorway. His business suit was wrinkled, briefcase hanging forgotten at his side. The expression on his face showed betrayal, yes, but deeper recognition, as if he'd known all along and chosen to ignore it. Something between us shattered irrevocably. Marcus's arm wrapped firmly around my waist, a test of resolve. The silence stretched, tight and suffocating. Richard then turned and left without a word. The front door slammed. Tires squealed. In an instant, 2 decades of marriage unraveled with Marcus's whispered words. Finally, the digital clock showed 4:23 a.m. as I lay motionless in bed, listening to Richard's irregular breathing. Since discovering us, silence had consumed him. He simply turned away, leaving behind quiet devastation that haunted me more than any shouting match could. My phone buzzed for the 15th time. Marcus sent messages from his room down the hall. "He won't come back tonight." The words burned into my palm, an intoxicating blend of invitation and accusation. Dawn filtered softly through blinds, compelling me to finally rise. By the door, Richard's abandoned briefcase lay with contents spilled across the floor, documents scattered like fragments of our broken life. My reflection in the hallway mirror startled me. Dark circles shadowed bloodshot eyes, lips still tender from Marcus's kisses. The figure in the glass was unrecognizable. Before I could move, Emma's door swung open. She surveyed my disheveled state, her expression hardening with resolve. "I told him," she whispered, voice trembling. "After you fell asleep, I called Dad at his office and shared everything." Her next words struck like bullets. "He's filing for divorce, and I never want to speak to you again." The house phone shattered the silence with its shrill tone. Marcus's voice echoed from downstairs, tinged with alarm. In the kitchen, I found him pale, receiver dangling from his fingers. "That was the hospital," he said. "Richard's been in an accident." The way he still called him Dad twisted the knife deeper. "They think he might have been drinking. His car hit a guardrail on the interstate." The emergency room reeked of antiseptic mingled with bitter coffee. Richard lay unconscious, surrounded by ICU monitors' sterile glow. His forehead was stitched, right arm encased in plaster. The young resident hesitated before speaking. "Your husband's blood alcohol was significantly over the legal limit." Officers found an empty whiskey bottle in the passenger seat. Marcus collapsed into a plastic chair, head in hands. I reached toward him instinctively, but he recoiled. "This is our fault," he muttered, more to himself than me. The realization crashed over him, what we'd accomplished, whom we'd wounded. Finally, he raised his eyes, reflecting crushing guilt. God, he was a father to me in every way that mattered. The waiting room television flickered to life, broadcasting a morning news segment about the accident involving a prominent attorney and drunk driving. My stomach dropped as Richard's professional headshot appeared on screen beside images of our damaged sedan. The scrolling text revealed that sources suggested marital problems might have contributed to the incident. Marcus's phone vibrated with a message. His face darkened as he showed me the screen. A gossip blog had quickly seized the story, featuring veiled comments about troubled relationships with his stepmother. The comments section was a wasteland where our reputations had died. By noon, the first reporter called the hospital. By 2 p.m., photographers had gathered in the parking lot, equipment ready with palpable anticipation. At 3, Richard stirred just enough to see me at his bedside before turning his face to the wall. The nurse gently suggested I leave. The house felt vast and hollow without Richard's familiar presence. Marcus paced the kitchen, fingers raking through his hair until it spiked wildly. "We need to act," he declared suddenly, grabbing his keys. "I'll talk to Emma, make her understand." Understand what? I captured the moment when the dam finally burst. That we destroyed our family for some twisted fantasy. The words hung in the air, harsh and inescapable. Marcus's expression turned steely. "You didn't seem to mind when you were whispering my name in the dark last night." The cruelty in his voice shocked me. This wasn't the vulnerable child from the hospital, this was someone else entirely. The doorbell chimed. Through frosted glass, 2 uniformed officers appeared. My blood turned to ice. Marcus answered as I lingered in the hallway, catching fragments. Restraining order. Maintain 500 feet distance. Request from Attorney Richards. The door clicked shut. Marcus's hands trembled. He's barring me from the house. From you. The unspoken implication hung heavy. Richard knew exactly how to punish us both. Without legal TIs, Marcus had no claim to this family. As he methodically folded clothes into a duffel bag, my eyes found the framed photo on his dresser. All 4 of us at his college graduation, Richard's arm proudly around his shoulders. Marcus noticed my gaze and deliberately flipped it face down. "This is for the best," he said, zipping the bag with finality. No farewell kiss, no promise to call. Only the soft echo of the front door closing and the profound realization that I'd lost them all, my husband, my daughter, and now the boy I'd foolishly believed cared for me. The silence was deafening. A news van pulled up outside. Inside the refrigerator, remnants of Richard's birthday cake lingered, sweet echoes of celebrations past, the festivities that ignited everything. I collapsed on the floor, the weight of my choices crushing my chest, suffocating my breath. A phone rang somewhere in the distance, likely another journalist, maybe the divorce attorney, or the hospital with updates about Richard's condition. I didn't answer. There were no words left to speak. The restraining order arrived on crisp legal paper, Richard's signature looming, a silent accusation demanding acknowledgement. 2 stark pages concluded 22 years of marriage with surgical precision. I traced my fingers over the embossed letterhead, feeling its texture with detachment. Irreconcilable differences, those words carried weight that barely conveyed how thoroughly I'd destroyed our life. My attorney's voice droned about asset division and alimony arrangements, but all I heard was Emma's broken voice declaring, "I never want to see you again." The house felt eerily quiet without Richard's evening news ritual and Marcus's music pulsing through walls. Even the refrigerator's hum seemed accusatory. I wandered into Marcus's abandoned bedroom. The sheets remained tangled from our last encounter, his cologne lingering in the air like a ghost. Yet his drawers sat half empty, the framed family photo on his desk now just a dusty outline. His final message lingered on my phone for 3 days before I found strength to delete it. Richard's face stared from every newsstand, a haunting presence demanding attention. The scandal had erupted spectacularly. Tabloids screamed about the prominent lawyer's wife involved in a scandalous affair with her stepson. My yearbook photo contrasted starkly with hospital images of Richard's recovery. Last week, the grocery store cashier recognized me. Her polite smile froze upon seeing my name on the credit card. I abandoned my full cart in the aisle, never to return. The divorce proceedings unfolded with ruthless efficiency. Richard's attorney unveiled evidence I hadn't realized existed: security camera footage from our home system capturing Marcus and me in the kitchen, my credit card statements for hotel rooms I'd claimed were spa visits, even our housekeeper's testimony about frequently changed sheets in Marcus's room. Sitting across the courtroom from Richard, I beheld the man I'd loved for decades now regarding me with the same cold detachment he reserved for criminals. Emma ignored my attempts to contact her. When I appeared at her dorm last month, her roommate said she'd transferred schools. That young woman's expression, a blend of pity and disgust, haunted my dreams more than any confrontation could. Then came Marcus's email. Not the heartfelt appeals I'd expected, but a formal notice that he'd hired legal representation to sue for emotional distress and boundary violations. His lawyer's letter claimed I'd exploited his vulnerable position within the family. The dates cited encompass moments I remembered differently, times when he sought my presence, messages he sent in darkness. The betrayal cut deeper than any legal separation could. The final humiliation came when Richard sold our story to a true crime podcast. I sat speechless as he recounted discovering my wife and the boy I'd raised as my own engaged in unspeakable acts. The host's horrified gasp echoed the response I should have felt months earlier. As the 911 call from Richard's accident played through speakers, his slurred voice begging the operator to let him die rather than endure this humiliation. I had to pull over, overcome with nausea. I sought out Marcus. The apartment stood empty, lifeless. His phone went straight to voicemail. His social media showcased tropical beaches and colorful drinks with captions celebrating newfound freedom. One photo showed his arm casually draped around a blonde girl, who looked no older than Emma. The date marked it 2 days after Richard's accident. Last week, the house found new owners. The young couple with their infant asked if the stained glass window in the foyer was original. I didn't mention that Richard had installed it for our 10th anniversary. While packing the final box, I discovered Marcus's high school graduation program tucked behind my desk. His youthful handwriting danced in the margins. "Thank you for being the most wonderful mother anyone could ask for." I burned it in the kitchen sink. Here I sit in this temporary apartment, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes, staring at the therapist's business card my lawyer recommended. The first appointment is tomorrow. I tell myself I'll go, that I want to understand how I became this person. Yet part of me wonders if some stains are permanent, resistant to any cleansing. The phone rings sharply. Probably another journalist or Richard's attorney with more papers. I don't answer. There's no one I want to talk to. The scent of lavender mixed with regret filled the therapist's office. Dr. Patterson sat across from me, notepad untouched, eyes fixed on mine as I recounted the entire sordid tale, from that first touch in the kitchen that stole my breath to the champagne-fueled abandon of Richard's birthday celebration. When finished, my hands shook and my throat felt raw, as if I'd been screaming. Dr. Patterson leaned forward. "Did you believe you loved him, or was it how he made you feel that captivated you?" The question hung in the air, ephemeral and elusive like smoke. No answer came. In night's depths, Richard visited my dreams, not the broken figure from the hospital, but him on our wedding day, smile radiant, hand steady as he slipped the ring onto my finger. I woke to find my pillow soaked, the empty side of the bed chillingly cold. Then came the email from Emma. Just 3 lines. "Father is remarrying someone. From his firm. She's pregnant. I thought you should hear it from me." The words blurred. Baby, new wife, life obliterated. I drove to Richard's new residence, a modern structure with wraparound porch, so different from our traditional colonial. I didn't knock, just sat in my car watching through windows as he laughed with a blonde woman, his hand resting on her rounded belly. Emma was there too, setting the table with care, her smile effortless, reminiscent of times long past. They looked happy. They looked like a family. Eventually, Marcus found me somehow. He appeared at my apartment without warning, tan deeper, hair sun-bleached, gold chain glinting at his throat. "Did you think of me?" he asked, smirking as though the past year had simply evaporated. I looked at him, truly saw him for the first time since everything shattered. The boyish charm had hardened into calculated facade. The vulnerability I'd succumbed to had vanished, replaced by cold confidence that chilled my skin. "You used me," I stated. He laughed heartily. "But you weren't used by me. You were lonely. I was simply a convenient warm body nearby." He moved closer, voice dropping to a whisper. "But we fit together perfectly, don't we?" For a moment, I hesitated, remembering his hands on my skin, how he'd ignited fire within me after years of neglect. Treacherous warmth still coursed through my veins. Then I thought of Richard's new baby, of Emma, of the life I'd reduced to ashes. Revulsion overwhelmed me. I stepped back. "Leave, now." Marcus's smirk vanished. "You'll change your mind." But I did, in single quotes. T-dawn. I bought a one-way ticket to a coastal town where no one knew my name. I traveled light, only clothes, a few childhood photos of Emma, and the wedding ring I'd hidden in my jewelry box. The therapist once asked if I regretted it all. The honest truth? Some days, I missed Marcus with deep, persistent longing. Other days, I despised him, but every day, I hated myself more. A taxi honked outside as I took one final look around the empty apartment. A sense of finality washed over me. Then I closed the door behind me. Not all stories end happily. Some simply end.